talking to us because Percy, you have a phenomenal mission. I know you are a licensed social worker. You've done many years of working in the psychiatric field, right? In the
Hmm.
social work field. And and now you're actually going to go for psychiatric nurse practitioner
Hmm.
and a little bit outside the box too, especially with your work with Afro-American men. So
Hmm.
that's why we kind of got you on here. I would love to hear a
Thank
little bit
you.
about, so welcome first. It's so
Oh,
awesome to have
thank
you
you.
here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know that's really exciting. I know it's evening, so it's a little bit late, but
Yes.
tell us a little bit about your story. Where are you
Mhm.
coming from and why are you choosing to now go for a psychiatric nurse practitioner? I'm really curious about your story. By the way,
Sure. Well, well, to make a long story short, I always like to, help people. I got into this field because my family suffers, from mental illness. It's a history of family, mental health, and so I kind of gotten very curious about it. Started from growing up, and one of my aunts had suffered from mental illness, and it always was interesting just how, as a family, we all came together and supported her whenever she exhibited behaviors. And then my interest grew even more as I was in high school and working with, I remember like volunteering and working like at behavioral hospitals and things like that. And I always found it interesting and fascinating. And as I went into college, I wanted to actually become a psychiatrist. And so my whole big thing is like, I wanted to get my MD, I wanted to become a psychiatrist. And then when I have taken Orgo Chem, that pretty much set the bar. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So then I changed majors from being a bio major to a psychology major, and that really opened up my interest even more. And my trajectory at the time was becoming a psychologist, a PhD psychologist, research and also doing clinical work. And then when I graduated from Temple, the thing is when you're in psychology, it's like you have to go out, work a couple of years, gain some research experience, and then go into grad school.
mhm.
So as I was working at Children's Hospital. I was working with trauma research at the time. And I met with a social worker. And my big thing was at the time I wanted to do therapy. I always found it fascinating to talk to people, see how people clicked, what were they thinking, their processing and things like that. I always just found that just interesting. And I still do to this day. And so when I met the social worker, she said, well, have you ever thought of pursuing your master's degree first prior to getting your doctorate? And I
Right.
said, I never thought about that. So then I went ahead and went back to school and earned my master's degree in social work.
Mhm.
And then my first job after that, I was actually working in outpatient mental health, actually in North Philadelphia at the JFK Center. And I loved it there because it really gave me a great perspective of mental health in the community and how that looks like from people's environments, because I worked with many people, mostly African American, but also other minorities as well, and how culturally they viewed mental health. So I
Right.
really got an opportunity to understand, okay, yes, from school, I know what depression and anxiety looks like and read all these different theories and things like that, but I gained more of an education from listening from people's experiences and then from their cultural perspective. I remember, one gentleman, he was African American, he was like in his 50s at the time, and he used to share with me like this was something that was never discussed. We never discussed about men being depressed. We never discussed about, men having anxiety. This was like a taboo. It was nothing ever told. And I remember he was very self-conscious in talking to the psychiatrist at the time because he was diabetic, but he noticed that his sugar levels was always high. But he was always very self-conscious and didn't want to, I guess, challenge the doctor, so to speak, because he wanted to be respectful of the doctor. The doctor was also African American as well, and there's a level of respect there.
Mhm.
And so he asked me, he was like, well, Percy, I'm noticing I have like, every time I'm taking this medication, I think it was Geodon at the time, he was saying that my sugar levels would always be elevated.
Mhm.
And so I did my little research and I realized like, oh, there is a side effect of increased sugar levels while someone's taking Geodon. So I remember it was myself, my client, we went to see the psychiatrist, and I advocated for my client. So that was another piece that I also like to share with the psychiatrist at the time, to saying, well, my client is also experiencing symptoms of elevated sugars because he's taking the Geodon and he's noticing these symptoms, and he presented to me, and now I would like to present this to you and see if there's any alternatives.
Right.
And so, so the doctor did put him on, I forgot what medication he put him on, but he taken them off of Geodon because of the elevated sugar levels. And I just really enjoyed, that whole, experience of being an advocate and supporting people in their, their journeys in mental health. And then I did various other positions as well. I did clinical research at Drexel, working particularly HIV education and counseling, where I had even a broader perspective of seeing mental health from a different lens in the HIV community. And then I went into the hospital setting, and I became a medical social worker. And that's when I really started to see how the medical aspect really intertwined with the psychosocial aspect of things. And so I just really, I've noticed that when I worked as a medical social worker, there was a lot of things I didn't understand because I didn't have that medical background or knowledge, but I also wanted to gain that because I'm like, I wonder how these medications are affecting one's behaviors, because whenever I was assigned, to a patient, especially if it was like drugs or alcohol, or if had a mental health history, or if the patient needs to talk to a social worker, we would always have to do our psychosocial assessments. And sometimes some, patients will share with me, well, sometimes I feel this certain way when I take this medication, or I don't want to take this medication because it makes me feel funny. And it's just find it interesting. But I realized that as a social worker, I needed to gain more knowledge, in the field of medicine. And I knew, I'm like, well, I don't want to become a doctor. I figure I was already kind of in my latter 20s at the time, early 30s, even though I was still young at the time, but I was like, I didn't want to invest so much time into becoming a doctor, residency, and so forth, because I really wanted to kind of expedite the process to gain that knowledge and really help people, And so to make a long story short, it's taken pretty much a decade to get to this point, because I graduated with my master's in 2010, and then now we're here, and I got accepted into school of nursing at University of Pennsylvania. And that's my goal. My goal is to actually, become a psychiatric NP and really combine my aspects of social work, psychology into nursing. Because the reason why I wanted to go into nursing is because when I became a medical social worker, I worked very closely with nurses, nurse case managers, nurses on the floor, and I've just seen how they really provided excellent care to the patients. And I didn't realize that nurses also had that therapeutic, that counseling aspect about them, like really asking questions, just basic questions like, how's your day, how things are going, how are you feeling, how's your pain level, tell me a little bit more about what's going on. And I always found that fascinating because as I was trained, I thought that only, social workers did that, or counselors would not not knowing that.
So actually going into this is and into nursing, into being a DNP, right? What do you think in terms of your passion for mental health for African American men? How do you think you want to combine the two, or any thoughts around it, or how you're actually doing it currently, and also how you want to move into that even more?
Sure. Well, right now as a counselor, I actually work remotely through BetterHelp. I'm one of the therapists there, and I work pretty much with a lot of African American men. And I really like working with that population because in my experience, a lot of African American men don't like to talk about their mental health problems. We just want to continue moving forward. We don't want to stress people out about our issues. We just continue moving forward. But I noticed that a lot of the sessions that I engage in with a lot of men, they want to talk, but they want to talk. They want to have a space where they feel comfortable. They want to feel a space where they feel heard and validated. And I always felt that I always wanted to, be that person that could, someone that looks like them, but also not have an agenda. I really wanted to, genuinely be there and support men who look like me and give them I provide, I should say, a space where they can talk about their feelings, talk about their emotions, have the ability to cry, get angry, and have that space. And so that way they can become their authentic self, especially when I worked in the hospital setting and I, witnessed, a lot of men with chronic pain
Mhm.
and how they would experience a kind of pain and the stress that they dealt with because they had to take care of their kids. They have to work full time. They have so much things going on, but they weren't complaining. They didn't want to complain because it was like, as a man, I got to take care of business. I got to take care of my family. And and that's something honorable and respectful. But
Yeah.
at the same time, we can't hold all those emotions in. We have to have an outlet. And so that's why I really wanted to make it a mission to combine my aspect of social work and nursing and continue to provide that space, and yeah, and I also found it too that as a social worker, I was pretty much limited in my role, especially if I wanted to work in the healthcare setting. I
Mhm.
really wanted to, if I really wanted to, I really wanted to sit down and talk to, these men and really get to the root of things and really help them navigate and get to, the root of their issues and be on that journey therapeutically with them.
That's
And I find that that's like my passion.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing what you're doing. I'm curious, kind of to wrap this up because I would say not more than 10 or 15 minutes, right? But
Yes.
and it's already. I mean, you've given a lot of valuable information already. We're gonna, of course, have your name in here, and on LinkedIn, you're also Percival Fisher. Percival Fish.
Yes.
Reach out, I assume, on social media. What would you say for those African American men, or even those nurses, African American nurses, right, as well, right?
Mhm.
Who are looking right now and they're interested and they're like, wow, I really want to dive into a little bit further. What kind of tips and advice would you give at this point to them, or anybody who's listening?
Sure, absolutely. I would say go for it. I mean, nursing is a wonderful field, nursing and social work. But I really find that with nursing, it kind of incorporates a lot of the aspects of your psychosocial and also the biological aspects as well. And I always will share with them like we need more nurses, especially more male nurses, that we can have a great representation to help people in need in the community, in the hospital setting, and also in the I should also say in the psychiatric community as well, because there's so very few of us, especially as social workers or nurses or even psych nurses or psych NPs. And I think it's very important that we do have a voice and we do have some sense of someone who looks like them that they can go to and ask questions and feel that they're heard and feel respected and validated. So I
Yeah,
would definitely should tell them to come on in and because it's a field that can offer so much opportunity.
yeah, I love it. And if there's any of men who are listening to this right now, or anybody actually said, "Wow, I'm really curious and I want to work more with you," right, directly, what would you say in terms of mental wellness, mental health? How can they get in touch with you? How can they work with you?
Yes, absolutely. Well, ironically, I'm with Amari, and right now I'm creating my platform of mental wellness. I'm also one of the therapists on BetterHelp, and so they can reach me at pfisherlcsw at gmail.com. I also have a LinkedIn profile as well. My name, Percival Fisher Jr., and they can, see me there. I also have a profile on Psychology Today where they can also see me again, my name, Percival Fisher, and they can reach out to me through there. And yeah, so I'm definitely doing a lot of things right now in terms of really building my platform and promoting mental health and also mental wellness, particularly for African American men. But I'm, want to help everyone if I
Yeah.
can.
No, absolutely, and that's phenomenal.
Yes.
So, and we'll have all those links down below, and all those numbers. We'll put those in the comments as well, right? So they can reach you. One tip,
Mhm.
one tip for somebody for tonight, like any who's listening for tonight, and any terms of mental health, mental wellness. If you give one tip, right, especially right now, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of stress going on to our world. What is
Mhm.
one tip that you would give to people who are listening so they can do tonight on their
Yes,
own?
absolutely. Find something that's calming, find something that gives you a sense of peace, a sense of solace. And I always share this with my clients who are experiencing great anxiety. Do some mindfulness techniques, listen to some peaceful music, jazz, nothing that is like hardcore, something that's soft, something that is, just enlightful. Burn some incense, light some candles, get you, meditate, pray if you're into prayer, you know, things that help to get you in a space where you feel safe and secure. And then, you know, meditate on positive things, you know, to decompress and de-stress. And I always share that there's many different websites out there and also some apps as well to also reinforce these techniques, like Headspace is one. And there's many other websites I just can't recall at this moment, but there's ways that you can definitely de-stress. So that's the one tip I can share too. And also during this whole coronavirus, you know, scare is limit yourself in terms of watching the media, you know, because there's so much information out there. And we have to be very cautious of the information that we do receive. And so I always, again, share with clients, you know, focus on factual information, refer to the CDC website and their tips and recommendations, but also stay away from other social media that causes one stress and anxiety. And again, focus on yourself, giving yourself, you know, chance to meditate and be in a safe space and keeping yourself calm.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Percy. Can we
Oh,
have you
you're
back
welcome.
in a couple of months? Because I was thinking as we're talking, I would love to have you back in a couple of months, or even maybe a little bit longer, as you continue your career and see what changes for you. So with
Oh,
that,
absolutely. Thank you. I would love to. Thank you.
thanks so much for coming on tonight. I'm excited about the career and everything that you're doing in mental health, mental wellness, and yeah, the difference you're making for people in general, also for African American men. I think. Thank you so much for all your work, and thank you for this interview. And we'll talk soon.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Take care.